Dan Gonder, thank you so much for joining me tonight on such short notice. I appreciate your time very much.
Thank you, Paul. Glad to be here.
My pleasure. So, Dan, before we begin, I'd just like to say that in order to try to keep my show's coverage balanced and avoid being labeled as overly conservative or liberal, I ask that anyone that has any well-formed opinions or information that may run counter to that which you and many others believe is true regarding the topic of masking or any main topic that we discuss here tonight, that they reach out to me because their thoughts are valid and they deserve to have their voices heard as well. And I know that many news sources, the main ones in the area, can't quite cover this topic in the same manner that I am. And this audience deserves to hear from both sides, from all sides, in order to develop a well-informed opinion. So that being said, let's go ahead and move on to your story. So, Dan, according to an explosion of social media posts from parents in Pontiac, Illinois, you claim to have been inappropriately confronted, to say the least, by someone in a leadership position tonight at a school board meeting in Pontiac. And I was hoping you could tell us firstly a little bit about who you are and then about what exactly happened tonight.
Well, as you said, my name is Dan Gonder. I'm a parent of a third grader that goes to a Pontiac public school. He goes to Lincoln. He's going to shortly be switching schools after this school year, just the way the schools are split. I also have a junior in high school that's at Pontiac Township High School. Pontiac is kind of a different egg when it comes to the schools. Our pre-K, K through 8 is under one school district, the Pontiac 429. Our high school is actually a separate district. I assume because they're a township high school conglomerate where we kind of have feeder schools coming in from around the area. So they have a different district, different superintendents, board of education, everything. And we're kind of having issues on both districts, but kind of for different reasons. But the main one was tonight at the special board meeting for the public school 429 was held at our junior high. At Pontiac Junior High School. We had about probably 75 to 100 parents there tonight in support. I'm an admin on some groups that are trying to band together as parents to try to get these masks off our kids. So we had probably 75 to 100 that came tonight, probably 10 of which decided to go ahead and speak during public speaking time. I led off. And my wife also spoke later after, 3-4 people. When we, each time we would get up there and speak, I would look at the board members and say what we had to say. And they all seemed very receptive, with the exception to our right was a principal at our Washington grade school, elementary school. It's 4th and 5th grade. He's a newer principal, I believe, maybe a couple of years. My oldest son did go to that school, but he was not the principal at the time. I have never met this man. I didn't even know he was a principal. I said, "Who is this guy?" Like, he was dressed more like a janitor, just like he came in off the streets, just Joe Blow. And people were like, "Oh, that's, the principal at Washington." And it just so happens Washington is connected to our junior high. So they connect the buildings. After each parent, the guy would sit there and laugh. He was clapping as almost like I would say, I describe it as a clown at a comedy show. It was very off-putting to let you know that he really was not clapping for you, that he was basically making fun of these parents. And the parents all had enough. I mean, he did this the entire time we were there. Finally, I stood up and I said, "I don't know what is up with, this guy over here, but he thinks everything's hilarious. This is so unprofessional. It's ridiculous." He continued to do nothing but stare at the parents in the bleachers the entire rest of the time we were there, just staring at me. I knew he was staring at me. So, the meeting adjourns, the board doesn't change anything. They say that, it's financial, that they won't get $3 million. They'll be held liable personally, that they may have staff shortages because some teachers may want masks. Well, now with the new things coming out today with JB Pritzker, these same teachers are going to be out in the malls. They're going to be shopping. They're going to be going to concerts, venues with thousands of people that are not required to mask. But yet somehow our students are still being made to mask. And to top it off, we technically have 3 school districts in our town. We have Pontiac High School, which is a district. We have our rest of our school, public schools, which is 429, and they have their own set. And then you have St. Mary's Catholic School here in town that is K through 8. And of course, these kids all know each other because they play at the Boys and Girls Club. They play baseball together. They're all Pontiac kids. And we have one school that is requiring, or one district that is requiring masks. St. Mary's have made them optional. The high schools made them optional. So us as parents have to explain to our children that go to separate schools, your brother doesn't have to wear one to the high school, but you have to wear one to your school. And so it's as we went to exit the gym, this is where the real problem came in. I was probably 3rd or 4th through the door as we were leaving. He was waiting right outside the door to confront me. I was talking to some other parents as we exited. He got up in my face. We need to talk. And what's your problem? And told me I was over emotional. And I said, I'm not going to talk to you. You proved in there exactly what you felt, what you thought, and you thought it was an entire joke. There's nothing for me to talk to you about. So I kept walking. He got back in front of me and continued to say that we need to talk and we need to talk and we need to talk. And I said, I'm done. I'm not talking to you. He's not a principal at any of my kids' schools at this point. He would have been next year. But if this man is still in any capacity to be in charge of anything, my kid's not going there. It's not going to happen. The parents tonight, 75 to 100 parents, have commented all over Facebook about what anger this man had in his face, the tone of his voice, and the way he kept coming at me. Eventually, as I got more toward the doors to try to exit the building, one of our police officers came over and actually got in front of him and pushed him and kind of walked him backwards and told him to stop. As we exited the building, he is still screaming and yelling, trying to talk to me, I guess. And other parents are behind telling him he's more immature than the kids he's the principal for. And it was unprofessional. And at the end of the day, we're just parents wanting the best for our kids. I understand money and I understand the liabilities and all of these things that go into it. But my biggest issue is I'm tired of our kids being looked at like they're dollar signs.
Mm-hmm. So continue. Go ahead.
No, my kids are not a liability to anyone. They're worried about liability insurance. To look at my kid as a liability, kids are our greatest asset. They're not a liability. Mm-hmm. We're not going to sit back and just allow this to continue to happen, and especially have this principal that wants to come and confront me after a school board meeting. I've seen a lot of videos of school board meetings on how they go nowadays, and this was as peaceful as you can get. I mean, when the board spoke and said basically they're not going to do anything, of course you had the parents going, "Oh, come on," and we figured, but nobody yelling, screaming at anyone. Nobody was violent. Nobody threatened any violence. And then to top it off, there's a picture out there of this principal at some convention with no mask on, taking a picture with some famous baseball player. And he's over here mocking us for trying to get the masks off of our kids. And he's got Facebook pics out there where he's 3 inches from a guy taking a picture. It's the hypocrisy, and then him to say that and act that way toward us.
Okay. So one thing that I do want to ask is, firstly, it seems like you said that the parents in attendance were relatively respectful at the board's decision, or at least a proclamation that they would not be making any big decisions tonight. Is that fair to say? No one was up in arms about the decisions made tonight?
As I said, you had some that we all went, all right, okay, we figured this was a waste of time. There was no one screaming. There was no one threatening. There was no one being belligerent, anything like that to anybody. We each took our turn talking. Each parent had great points, points that I didn't think of, points my wife didn't think of. And so, it was great to see everyone out there, because the only way we're going to make change is to start change. That's the only way. We can't sit back and say that we want change and not do anything about it.
And what was the general consensus of the evening as far as the parents go? Were most of the people there? Maybe you can give a percentage or rough estimate. What percentage would you say the people there in attendance were trying to get the masks made optional at school?
100%. I could care less if the masks are optional. Optional is fine. You want to send your kid to school with 5 masks on, you want to put them in bubble wrap, that is your concern. You're the parent. But when you force my child to either not go to school or be forced to wear the mask, that there's no legal standing at this point, then, that's when we're going to have a problem. I don't know of any parent there tonight that was for masks.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear a one. Nobody stood up. Nobody said a word. Everybody came. We had people there that don't even have kids in our district. We had a lady there that homeschools her kids and was still there to support multiple. I think there was multiple people that homeschool at this point. So, at this point, with this principal, the way he was, we're not sending our son to Washington. It's not going to happen. There's a change.org petition out for his termination. So that's already been circulating around Facebook. This story has been shared a lot of times of how he acted. There's people posting on there telling me I did a great job of walking away. I don't even know these people. I do not know a lot of the people that were there tonight. Out of the 75 or 100, I probably know 20 of them.
So it's fair to say that there are plenty of witnesses that agree that he acted out of line.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Somebody started the change.org. I did not do that. Okay. But I have signed it, obviously, but, and I've shared it, to our groups, but, there is a petition out there at this time. But I do know that some parents that were farther back behind us coming out of the gym did go back in and tell some of the board members about it, about what happened. They did post that they did let them know. But it was just very uncalled for. I didn't go there to commit violence. I didn't go there to be in a screaming match with anyone, let alone a principal at a school I have no children at.
Sure.
That's not violence, assault, yelling, screaming is not the way to solve those problems.
And, while part of me does feel a little funny about, really going after this man, and it's a long shot, but if he would come on here and defend himself, if he even believes he has anything to defend, I would be open to that. But of course, given the position he's in, it might be difficult for him to do that. But did anyone get video? Was there any video, a live stream of this whole thing or not?
I don't know if the school did record or stream on the board meeting itself. Unfortunately, all of our board members were stationed, had desks 6 feet apart, and they all had masks. And it was really hard to understand, some of what they were saying to us, just due to the microphone and the mask and that. So.
Okay. And would you say that the board members are pro mask, the current legislation around masking in school?
Based on conversations I've personally had with a board member and what the board member said tonight, it seemed like the majority. We have 7 board members. I believe only 6 may have been there tonight, because I only saw 7 people up where the board was, and one of them was our superintendent, which wouldn't be on the board. So I believe maybe there was only 6 there tonight, but I would say at least 3 or 4 of them, when they spoke, either had kids in school still or did have and are against masks. they're hoping that this appellate ruling goes through. They hope that on the 17th that everything will go back to normal. And, but they just, keep saying that they're going to lose $3 million in funding. They're going to be liable themselves and all of this. But I ask myself, how did all the other districts have the backbone and an attorney that advised them that they were okay to do so? I mean, I just saw the figures somebody shared. It was over half of the school districts in Illinois are going mask optional. So, or have went mask optional. And it creates a bigger issue here because we do have 3 separate school districts. And right now we have 66% of them, are going maskless. And now we have 33% of students that are or of the district that's not going with no mask, so or mask optional. No mask optional. We don't care as parents. As far as I can tell, everyone that I've spoken to, we don't care. You want to send your kids to school in a mask, send them to school in a mask. You want to wear one, wear one. That's your decision.
And what was, you kind of glossed over, what was the news with J.B. Pritzker today and the announcement he made? I believe it was fairly recent regarding the science of things, correct?
Yes, he's, from my understanding, he's going to be lifting a lot of restrictions on masks in the state starting February 28th. But with that removal of the mask mandates for these areas, he said there's still going to be some special cases, such as schools, that aren't going to get rid of the masks. So now we're going to have these teachers that are upset about not having masks. On their off time are going to be doing whatever they do, and they're going to be in the middle of a store and saying, "Hey, you need to put on a mask."
So what do you feel?
Because that's what they're doing to my child. I mean, that's what they're doing to my child. They're stopping children from going to school because they're not wearing their mask. So I don't know the answer. I know the answer is we need to get the masks off the kids.
What do you think should be done about this situation in the immediate days that follow? Tomorrow, the next day. What would you like to see done?
I would like to see the board reverse their decisions and put our kids' best interests. Stop worrying about the money. Stop worrying about the liability.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, though, a lot of people might be as quick as saying, well, sorry, we can't do that because that'll jeopardize even more kids' lives in our schools if we do decline that much money. What do you say to that, though?
I say where there's a will, there's a way. I don't think J.B. Pritzker is going to take the money away from over half of the school districts in this state. I don't believe there's a court that's going to allow that to happen. And right now there is no law. There's no law, period. And all we have is his governor's orders to do all this by. So that court has thrown that out. He is barred from. You're committing contempt of court if you go and penalize any schools for doing what the judge says. I don't believe there's a judge anywhere that's going to take away the funding from schools.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
I think it's standing. I think it's something to stand behind, so we can drag our feet. I really do. I don't think anybody wants to make the decision. When the decisions are tough, you need to make the tough decisions.
Right. Okay. So I think you articulated your thoughts very well. And I just want to remind people that have watched up to this point, if you know someone that really wants to challenge what Dan is saying here for the sake of open and honest journalism and the distribution of thoughts and opinions here, feel free to reach out to me. But Dan, with that being said, thank you very much for your time tonight and good luck with everything moving forward. May we all be able to navigate through this mess with the least amount of wreckage possible. And is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
No, I guess at the end of the day, even if these masks become optional, I feel we're going to have issues. I hope we don't have issues like we've seen really at our high school here in the last couple of days, where staff have alienated students that have chose to not wear masks. Your personal beliefs have to stay out of the classroom. They really do. I mean, if you're telling students that are masked that they can come to your desk and ask for help, But if you're unmasked, you have to email and try to get help through email. So, I mean, that right there in itself, having anybody singled out because they're in a class that is majority masked students, and you have 2 or 3, or in this case, 1, that it was pointed out that he could be moved if there was any issues with him not wearing one.
So there were cases where like a student who didn't wear a mask, where masks were optional, was told to email the teacher his question rather than get up and go talk to him, whereas a kid with a mask could go up and talk to the teacher.
Correct. Yes, that's the discrimination. I mean, it's really discrimination, that you don't have the same beliefs with the mask that I do. So I'm going to allow these students to come up here and reward them. I mean, it's a reward when you need help and you get it face to face with your teacher. Yeah, I can email all day long, but sitting with my teacher, I'm going to get a lot more help. I'm going to maybe understand it more.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And so, I mean, anytime you have where a teacher is saying, anything about your vaccination status, anything about you wearing a mask or your parents, honestly, I'm fearful of my 3rd grader going to school tomorrow, just because I don't know who and what to trust as far as their views, how they're gonna treat my son based on his views. I don't care about your views. I don't care about the next guy's views. As long as you're not trying to ram those views down my child's throat or mistreat my child, then that's your business. I mean, you can believe what you want. That's what makes America great. But, to sit back and do nothing is just not an option at this point. We've got to try to teach our kids to respect, their authority, to follow the laws, try to blend in. But on the other flip side, we have to teach our kids to stand up for what they believe in, stand up for their rights, and to have a loud voice when they see injustice. And so we're torn. I don't want to tell my kid, refuse to do something your principal or teacher says.
Mm-hmm. And now, while I don't want to claim solidarity with one side or another, one of my favorite sayings that always seems to ring true is, what is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right.
Very true. Very true.
All right. Well, Dan, thank you so much again for coming on tonight, and I'll go ahead and share this episode probably tonight, and we'll see how many shares it gets and see if people get to talking here. But again, thank you so much.
I appreciate your time. You have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much for watching that special and short episode of the Paul Garcia Show. If you'd like to see more coverage like this, consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, liking my page on Facebook, and following me on Instagram. And most importantly, share this video to get the word out. Additionally, if you'd like to support the show, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Paul Garcia. And if you'd like to donate to the show, you can do so on the Venmo app at username The Paul Garcia Show. Until next time, I'm your host, Paul Garcia. God bless and have a great week.